Hi, welcome back. This is Kat with the Power of You. So today I want to talk a little bit more about the power of the subconscious mind. This is where we left off in my last video. So I want to delve into this a little bit more. Some facts about the subconscious mind. It is basically just a big recorder, and this is super helpful when we are recording and storing information and data about how to drive a car, and other things that serve us so that we and here's another example. When we're learning to walk, the subconscious mind records all of that information, and we operate from that subconscious program when we're driving down the road and we kind of check out, and then all of a sudden we realize, oh, I'm at my destination, right? But when we first learn to drive, especially if you learn on a manual or a stick shift, I'm dating myself here a little bit, but in the beginning, when my parents taught me how to drive, they wanted me to learn on an automatic transmission because there was so much already that was going on, right? The braking and the turn signal, and make sure you have your lights on, and you're driving at a safe distance, and all the things that are important to learn and kind of get right from the beginning to be a safe driver. But at some point, once that information is stored at the subconscious mind, you could be putting on makeup and playing with the radio and, looking at your phone and all the things that we do when we are distracted when we're driving. But because of that subconscious mind programming, we can do all of these things. And for the most part, although it's not a wise thing to do, but for the most part, we can drive, get ourselves to different places while still doing all these things because we're operating from that subconscious mind programming. It's the same thing when we learn how to walk. Could you imagine if every day when you woke up for the rest of your life, you had to learn how to walk all over again, right? So these are the ways that the subconscious mind serves us and helps us so that once we learn these things and we have the programming for these things, we don't have to relearn it every day of our lives for the rest of our lives. However, there is other subconscious programming that does not serve us. And from the time that we are in our mother's wombs, all the way up until about the age of 7 or so, our subconscious mind is taking in all kinds of data. It's kind of like a big sponge that's soaking up all of this information and data that will serve us in our life going forward. So, what are the types of things? So, when we are in our mother's womb, the subconscious mind is picking up the environment that we're going to be born into, right? It's picking up, is there danger in the environment? Is, God forbid, my mother, being abused in some way? And so this prepares us, what are the voices of our parents so that when we're born, we recognize our mother's voice and our father's voice. So these are just some of the things. There's a lot that goes into it, but these are some of the things that prepare us when we are in our mother's womb to enter the environment that we are about to be born into. And some of the other programming that happens from the time that we are actually born up until about age 7 is we learn what are the rules of our family, what are the rules of our culture, what are the rules of our society, and they're taught to us by, you know, those, if we are in a family of organized religion, we learn what is acceptable, what isn't acceptable, what is proper, what isn't proper, what etiquette do we use, how do we behave ourselves, how do we conduct ourselves in these types of things, whether it's in an organized religion environment, the school that we attend, the family that we're living in, what part of our immediate family, any siblings we have, our parents, our extended family, how do we behave with aunts and uncles and our grandparents. So these are all the things that we are taught to be able to navigate and live successfully in our environment and our family of origin and all of these things. So we are built to be these sponges so that we can quickly take in information and use it for our survival. And so this brings me to the number one job of the subconscious mind is to keep us alive so that we survive. And part of keeping us alive is keeping us safe. So as we are growing and going along from in the womb all the way up until current day is all of this recording and all of this data that's being captured and stored in the subconscious mind. So what does this mean? Well, on the good side of it, it means that we have programming, we can drive, we can walk, all of these things we talked about. The negative aspect is we have picked up other people's beliefs, and that's just it. They're other people's beliefs, but are they our beliefs from a conscious perspective, from our conscious wishes, goals, and desires? Are they our beliefs at the subconscious level, or are they everybody else's beliefs? And they're everybody else's beliefs, unless you've done work at this to reprogram the subconscious mind. So other people's beliefs aren't necessarily going to serve you in your life and what your goals are. So and they could, most of the time, they're not serving you. They're beliefs of limitation. And then on a grander perspective, we have the collective, right? The human collective limiting beliefs of lack and scarcity and fear. And that's a whole other huge can of worms I'm not going to open right now. But just think about that also going into the bucket of our subconscious beliefs and programming around limitation that is not serving us, whether it's lack or fear and all of the other things. Okay. Then we also have in that programming any of the events that have happened in our lives. So I'm talking about anything traumatic or dramatic or scary or harmful or hurtful. Now, here's the thing. Every person, every human has their own experiences. And what may be traumatic or dramatic for one person might not even phase another person. So, obviously, there are things that we could all agree are pretty traumatic and dramatic, but depending on how that person has lived or what the environment that they've been in, it might be so commonplace for them that they really don't see how traumatic or dramatic something is in their life. And oftentimes, once the ante is upped in these events or experiences, then they might start to see, wow, yeah, there's really a lot of damage that I've been exposed to, a lot of really damaging and hurtful and harmful situations. And all of these things are stored in the subconscious mind. And so the brain is in its attempts to be very efficient, or in its efficiency, it will group these different events that were emotionally charged or traumatic or dramatic in some way. It will group them into kind of categories at the subconscious level. And so stick with that there for just a minute. We're going to circle back to why different people have what might be traumatic for one person and not traumatic for another person. It's based on our personal perception of the event. And a good example of this is if there's a car accident or maybe a crime of some kind, and the officer asks each of these 5 witnesses what they saw, they're likely to get, the investigator is likely to get 5 different answers. There could be some similarities and crossovers, but they're likely to get 5 different answers. And it is because it's based on each person's perception or filters that they're looking through based on the beliefs that they have formed throughout their life. So when we have a traumatic or emotionally charged event, it gets programmed and held in the subconscious mind and then referenced later. And this creates our perceptions and our beliefs about our life and our experiences and our reality. So let's go back to the stored information. So it's grouped in like as far as the subconscious mind is concerned, like categories or like areas. And so I found that when I was tapering off my medication, and I find this with other clients as well, a lot of the things that we experience when we're tapering our medication, the subconscious mind associates with like situations. And so when I mentioned in my previous video that things are getting, poked at, or I don't like the word triggered, but they're getting poked at or triggered. As we're going through this coming off and tapering experience, these associated files at the subconscious level are getting referenced. Okay, so that subconscious program files operating system is getting tapped into. It's getting referenced. That program is getting the button, the press play button, the play button that's getting pressed in the operating system, also known as the subconscious mind beliefs and programming, the play button is getting pushed. And so even if it is not the exact situation where the programming came from, where the record and the note to keep this person safe and alive, even if it is not the exact situation, and many times it isn't, because we're adults now, we're in a completely different environment, a completely different stage in our life. Lots of things have changed. It doesn't matter. If there is any perception from the subconscious mind that there is a like scenario or situation playing out, the subconscious mind is going to do whatever it needs to do to protect you. So it could be a fear response or terror. It could be physical manifestations where you have a stomach ache, or right, because the subconscious mind is going to do whatever it thinks it needs to do to get your attention. And I can hear you right now like, oh, believe me, my attention has been gotten, right? Like mission accomplished in this coming off process. But it is the subconscious mind causing physiological responses in the body to say, I recognize this danger. This is very similar to whatever was stored before. Like I said, it could be the exact situation, but many times it's not, because the subconscious mind, it doesn't analyze, it can't reason. It's just saying, for whatever reason, this is just like this scenario over here that I've experienced in the past, and therefore I need to take action. And so I hope I'm explaining this well enough. Let me see if I can give you a personal example. I can't think of one right now, but the point is that a lot of this programming is getting triggered, and it's part of keeping you alive. So there's that aspect of the subconscious programming. It's getting poked at, whether it's the same situation or not. And then the other thing is, I mean, the subconscious mind does regulate a lot of our bodily symptoms. So Marissa Peer, she's a psychologist out of the UK. She does a lot of really brilliant work on what is getting triggered. Here's the other thing. Our thoughts are going to trigger our subconscious programming, but our thoughts often come from whatever's stored in the subconscious mind. So you're in this loop of thinking and then feeling, and then that's my reality, right? I think about it, these thoughts and these fears are coming from the subconscious mind and the programming and everything that's stored in there in the subconscious mind. We're seeing it play out in our reality, like, but that is the reality. I see the reality. This is my reality, right? And so it creates this loop of thought and feeling, and the thoughts coming from the subconscious mind and the programming. It's also coming from our conscious mind because we're seeing it in our reality and we say that this is what's really happening. And it just creates this loop. I've heard some people refer to it as the loop of doom. And this is a loop of doom whether you're tapering medication or not. So it's this loop of doom that we get caught up in, and we need to do something to break this loop of doom. And so the first thing I want to talk about is, what are your thoughts? What are you thinking about? And then the second thing I'm going to talk about is our thoughts and our beliefs are creating our reality. And so what do we do with that? So we've got to change the subconscious programming. And there's several ways to do this. Psych-K is one of them. It is my favorite one, because Psych-K does more than just reprogram and change the subconscious beliefs. So we've got to change the subconscious programming, which is going into the thoughts that are being generated. We need to change our thoughts, which will then start to shift the experience that we're having. So it's about breaking that loop. All right, so that's where I'm going with all of this. We're going to talk about our thoughts and how reprogramming our subconscious mind will start to create a different reality than what we're currently experiencing. So just know the subconscious mind is just one big recorder. It's playing into the thoughts that we're thinking when we're in this coming off process. It's playing into the reality that we're currently experiencing. And if we don't change these programs, they're going to continue to manifest even after we're off of the medication. And these traumas and dramas that are stored in the subconscious mind need to be re-perceived. So, as the late, great Wayne Dyer said, when we change the way we look at things, meaning our perception, the things that we look at change. The way that we're viewing our reality and the way that we're perceiving the events that have transpired in our lives. And if you're like me, a lot of those events and the way that I was perceiving them was a big reason of why and how I ended up on the medication in the first place. So when I had a re-perception and I changed the way that I looked at the events that had happened in my life and were currently happening in my life, my whole reality started to change and shift. All right, so thanks for being with me now and taking the time to listen to this video. I will, as always, put my contact information in the description box. And if you're looking for any kind of assistance or just to chat, I'd be happy to talk with you and answer any questions that you have. And whether it's about Psych-K or my personal coming off experience, I'm happy to do that. Definitely look into the work of Marissa here, P-E-E-E-R. She does a brilliant job of talking about what are we saying to ourselves, what is that programming, and how is it showing up in our world and our reality. But we'll talk more about that in future videos. So thanks a lot, and I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.